So in this video, I would like to explain the last case that there is in Russian, which is the prepositional. The prepositional case is the sixth case that modifies words differently than the previous five. As the name suggests, the prepositional case is only used when a noun is accompanied by a particular preposition. While other Russian cases can work with and without prepositions, the prepositional is only ever used with prepositions like na, which is on or at, v, which is in, and most importantly, o, which is about, meaning that the case talks about something or someone. This form of a case visually puts the questions of what and whom after the preposition about, thus asking the questions about what and about whom. Still, it shows that the case is only used when accompanied by particular prepositions, like about, in, on, or at. Sometimes these prepositions are used in other cases, but they give them different meanings, which is different from the case itself. The prepositional also has other functions, like working with verbs that are related to speech, thought, and emotional state. As always, I will not be covering these elements of the prepositional simply because they're too advanced for now. To understand these ideas, you first have to understand the primary concept of the prepositional. In the translator, about what and about whom are shown differently because it's a different type of expression. If we want to know whether a word is in the prepositional, we have to ask these questions to see if they fit the context. Hence, they come after a preposition like about. To make learning simple, the phrases that you'll see in the video will be a combination of about what, about whom, and in what, to make practice more legitimate and realistic, considering that the prepositional works with prepositions. To understand how to modify nouns in the prepositional, we have to know the gender of the noun we're working with, whether it's masculine, feminine, or neuter. Something useful to note about the prepositional is that it has one of the simplest grammatical endings because almost all of its endings are the same. In the singular form of the prepositional, if a masculine noun ends in a consonant, add ye. If it ends in i kratkoye, replace it with ye. If it ends in the mehki znak, also replace it with ye. If a feminine noun ends in a, replace it with ye. If it ends in ya, replace it with ye. If it ends in the mehki znak, replace it with i. If a neuter noun ends in ye, there is no change. And if it ends in o, replace it with ye. This is how you modify nouns in the singular form in the prepositional. And as I said, almost all endings are the same. The plural form in the prepositional is also very simple because all we do is look at the last letter of the nominative singular form and then apply the grammatical ending in the prepositional. If a noun, masculine or feminine, ends in a consonant, a or o, add ach in the end. Sometimes you'll have to replace a or o with ach. If a noun ends in any other letter, replace it with yach. This is how you modify nouns in the plural form in the prepositional. Here we have the phrases I am in the house and I am in the houses. Ya v dome and ya v domach. Let's not forget that Russian doesn't have articles and doesn't use the verb to be in the present, which is why you don't see these words in Russian. Also, saying ya v domach doesn't really make sense because it's not possible to be inside multiple houses, but again, simply focus on the grammar of the noun. These phrases are prepositional because the noun follows a certain preposition, like in. We know it's prepositional because we can ask, in what? In the house or houses. V chom, v dome, or v domach. In this case, we have a masculine noun that ends in a consonant, so we add ye when it's singular and ach when it's plural. Considering that vdomye and vdomach are the nouns following the preposition in, we don't even need the beginning of the phrases because we grammatically know that domye means in the house and domach means in the houses. We can take these phrases and put them in the translator without having complete sentences, and they will still be in the prepositional, hence they're prepositional phrases. Here, we have a masculine noun that ends in i kratkoye. Ya v muzeye and ya v muzeyach. Once again, the second phrase doesn't really make sense, but simply focus on the nouns. These phrases are prepositional because we can ask, in what? In the museum or museums. V chom, v muzeje or v muzejach. Muzei ends in I kratkoje, so we change it to je when singular and to jach when plural. Here we have an example that asks about whom, rather than in what or about what. Ja говорю о госте and ja говорю о гостях. Гость is the masculine noun that ends in the мягкий знак, so we change it to je when singular and to jach when plural. The same concept can also be done with a name, like I talk about Tom. Я говорю о Томе. Tom is the masculine name that ends in a consonant, and because the names of people are always singular, we add je. Now, let's work with feminine nouns. Here, we have a feminine noun that ends in a. Я в машине and я в машинах. Mashina ends in a, so we replace it with je when singular and with ach when plural. Also, just because you see the same ending for a feminine noun in one case, it doesn't mean that it's going to be a different one. Just because the grammar borrows a letter from a different case, it doesn't mean that it's the same one. So watch out for these ideas. Here, we have a feminine noun that ends in ya. Я в деревне and я в деревнях. Деревня ends in ya, so we replace it with je when singular and with jach when plural. Here, we have a feminine noun that ends in the мягкий знак, that utilizes the question about what. Я говорю о ночи and я говорю о ночах. Ночь ends in the мягкий знак, so we change it to je when singular and to ach when plural. Here, we have a feminine name. Я говорю о Белле. Because Bella is a feminine name that's always singular, we replace the a with je. Here, we have a neuter noun that ends in je. Я в море and я в морях. Море ends in je, so we don't change it when singular, but change it to jach when plural. Here, we have a neuter noun that ends in o. Я говорю о лице and я говорю о лицах. Лицо ends in o, so we change it to je when singular and to ach when plural. Overall, this is how the last case, the prepositional, works in Russian. Throughout these videos, I've given a full description of the 6 cases in Russian and explained what each case does and what is it for, along with the unique grammar that each case has. Even though it was a lot of information, I highly advise to not memorize most of it because it's simply too much. These videos were just meant to show and explain what are the 6 Russian cases or 6 types of expressions and how to use them correctly. This was the main goal, and in the next videos, Russian fundamentals and principles will get simpler, faster, and more practical.